I'd just like to do sort of a brief introduction of yourself, and most people will know you from Tifo Football. Having heard you, a familiar voice, and on in recent occasions have seen you on their screens as well. But sort of, what was your route into football and route into Tifo?
So I left a job in the police in 2014, where I was working in London, and prior to that point, I'd been blogging. I had a little blog called "Put Niels in Goal" after Niels Bohr, the theoretical physicist who was also a goalkeeper for Academ's Bolt Club over in Copenhagen. His brother was actually a footballer as well, much more successful, and played for the Danish national team in the Olympics back in the 20s. And that was a sort of, I suppose, a kind of football culture crossover. So I wrote about football and literature, football and art, that kind of stuff. And as a result of that, I went on a podcast with Joe Devine, who at that point was running a pod called The Illustrated Game, which had a sort of mix of comedy and music and football chat. We lived relatively near each other in North London. And that was where I first got to know Joe. Philippe, also, who's one of our illustrators, was part of that. And Alice, who's now our studio manager as well. And Joe and I kind of stayed in touch. And after I left the police, I thought that I would like to give football writing a go. It was the sort of the relatively early days of football Twitter, when people were still nice to one another. And so, I'd had encouragement from certain people and felt like I could, get some advice and so on. So I had a crack at it. And after freelancing for a few years, UMaxit, which is what Tifo used to be called, was going from strength to strength. And I started working full time there. We transitioned into videos, and I came on to do the sort of stuff I was already doing in terms of script writing, but also to kind of have a handle on strategy and how we build the business and how we monetize it. Joe and I were working very, very closely together at that point. And then obviously, now we've joined The Athletic, which is really exciting, increasing our output, doing other things like you referenced, the kind of piece to camera videos, which is a new departure for me, but an interesting one. Hopefully it's going all right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I speak for everybody who engages with Tifo's output. Is it's hugely entertaining. When gyms were open, I used to sort of stick a few Tifo videos on to distract me from being on the treadmill or on the stepper or something like that. So it's come in handy. It's fair to say. But yeah, you mentioned there that in 2020 you were taken over by, or rather bought by, The Athletic, which was obviously huge for Tifo, and huge for yourself and Joe, Alice, and everybody there who were obviously big players. What was that like? Sort of the approach, and sort of being acquired by such a huge sports brand.
It was really exciting. I mean, we first met them back in I think it was probably July of 2019, and they were sort of starting to make their moves. Ed Mallion was putting together his famous whiteboard of talent, and we went to chat to them. Partly, I think, because some of the guys in sort of senior leadership over at The Athletic who were researching football with a view to launching The Athletic UK had come across our videos and liked the way that we did stuff. Obviously, we had a fairly decent audience by that point as well. And so the initial conversation was really around marketing. We were a marketing partner for The Athletic as they launched in the UK. But there was also very much a sense, I think, certainly from our side and also from theirs, that this was a partnership that could develop into something more. I was already an Athletic subscriber and had been for months and months, because I very much liked the way that they did stuff. And when we went and met them, kind of the names that were there, and even some of the people that I saw in the lobby of the hotel being talked to, I was thinking, this is going to be something over here. They had the lineage of what they'd built in the US already. The subscription model made a lot of sense in terms of being able to support good quality long form journalism. and they were hiring really good people. So when we then went over to San Francisco in September of 2019 to kind of chat through a potential acquisition, it was the vision that they had for what we were going to do should we join them very closely aligned with what we wanted to do anyway. And it was it was really exciting to have that conversation. I think it's probably fair to say that Tifo, while we were doing all right, like it was a struggle to keep things going on a sort of month to month basis from a financial perspective. Running a YouTube channel, seeking to monetize it professionally and work in that space is really hard work. And I think I don't want to say it detracted from the quality of what we did, but it certainly meant that we had at least one eye on, sustainability in the future as much as we did on content creation. Even though those two things go hand in hand, it's hard to balance them. And so, the Athletic taking us over, it's not just given us access to a brilliant team of journalists. It's allowed us to expand. It's allowed us to concentrate on making the best stuff we can and push those formats forwards, as well as, just, I guess, expanding our horizons in terms of what Tifo's capable of doing.
Yeah, I mean, from sort of the outside looking in, it's always appeared as though it's work which is incredibly enjoyable, but also very arduous to conduct, because what, as you say, with the content creation, with that additional funding, with the additional sort of creative freedom, comes the responsibility of being. I mean, I don't want to be as crass as saying being right, but at least being as well informed as anybody. So, I mean, I suppose the sort of question is, it appears as though a lot of your work would give you great satisfaction, but what would you say sort of the most difficult aspect of the transition and the change has been?
I'd like to say that almost there hasn't been a difficult aspect. I suppose, yes, the work is hard, in the sense that I know from the volume of people that watch the material that we put out, that there's a kind of pressure that's coming from that. It is incumbent on us, if not to be right, at least to be as well informed and fair as possible. I think that's very much the case as well for the videos that we do that are less pure football, which is more my side of stuff. But when we venture into the realm of politics or sociology or whatever it is, it's we have to be on the money, and actually being part of the Athletic has helped that, because we have, like I say, we have this team of journalists that we can go and talk to and get insight from, and there's a kind of an editorial apparatus there that's bolstered what we were already doing. I guess for me personally, the satisfaction is when I see comments that say, oh, I watched this and now I understand something.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tifo, we are not as complicated as a Spielverlagerungen. We're not as focused on player identification as you guys are. And I've been huge fans of what you guys have been doing for a while now. And the Scouted Football magazines are a fantastic resource. But we tread a kind of a more middle ground, where we are looking to appeal to as broad an audience as possible, but to retain that sense of being informative as well as being entertaining. And I think for me, the satisfaction comes from when we tread that line correctly. Something has to be fun, it has to be engaging, it has to be something that's worth sticking on while you're on your treadmill. But at the same time, I want you to come away from that thinking that you know a little bit more or understand a little bit more about some aspect of football. And if both of those boxes are ticked, then we've done our job.